This is Jay. Thanks for watching. Today we're doing some Sludge Talk. So my friend Mark came over and we played some Sludge. I'm going to go over the two armies before the battle. We'll show you some footage of the battle and we'll talk about Sludge, the game, our thoughts on it, and I hope you enjoy. This is Sludge Talk.
This is 250 points of Royalist Sludge Army here. This is my commander. He's mounted. Aethrud the Confessor, a Chaplain. I've got a Royal Magician. He is also mounted. Then I've got Royal Hussars. There's 5 of those guys. I do not have the Death's Head cavalry sabers on them because I couldn't afford it. Over here is a unit of 6 line infantry with crossbows and bayonets. They actually do have the standard. This is my heavy cav. These guys, the flag is, they don't actually allow to have a standard. That is just purely decorative. Light cavalry, the dragoons, they've got some shooting power there. These are the Royal Marines. There's 5 stands of them, and they have the standard as well. That is 250 points of Royalist Sludge Army right there, ready to go.
So this is my Imperial Basilisk Emperor army, and this is my commander. He has a bodyguard and a battle standard. These are the 2 arcanists. I'm also taking a chaplain. This is my Imperial Zouave unit. These Zouaves have a musician and regimental standard, and they are veterans. My light cavalry unit. I've got a field artillery unit here with a veteran upgrade. And these guys here are a line infantry with a musician and standard. They are 6 bases.
What mission did we play? We played the first mission out of the book?
Yeah, we played the Sacred Ground mission. Mm-hmm. And we used the battle line deployment method. As far as placing terrain, we just kind of set up stuff, and there was no like fancy alternating of placing terrain, which I don't think is a normal thing in Sludge anyway. But yeah.
Yeah. You just you set up a decent.
Make something agreeable to both players, I think, is what it kind of says. So.
I think so. Yeah, and then I deployed on one side, you deployed on the other. I had this initial idea that I was going to see how the action kind of played out for me. Was turn 1, I moved my heavy cavalry. They were kind of right up the middle. Mm-hmm. I had them supported by my Royal Magician, and my idea was that they were just going to come right into your line infantry. Your line infantry was just like a musket volley line infantry with battle standard. It wasn't
battle standard and musician. Yep.
Battle standard and musician. It wasn't your Zouaves.
No, they were over on my left flank.
Yeah. So it was kind of like I was going to charge those guys, but you put the hold position order on them.
Yes.
Which kind of messed up my initial gambit, because I was like, oh, I'm going to run right into your front line, but that whole position made me really stagger my cavalry charge. That's really was my first turn, was kind of coming in and thinking about doing that first charge. Mm-hmm. We just kind of advanced forward, and then I started buffing my line infantry with crossbows too, right off the bat, which you also, your infantry, you were buffing those guys. Mm-hmm. And I thought there was going to be this legendary standoff between those guys as well, but that's kind of where I started. Yeah. What were your thoughts with your initial strategy?
Well, I was initially kind of waiting. I was kind of waiting for you to come to me, since you had so many fast elements, all of the horses, all the cavalry that you had. So I figured you were definitely faster than I was. So I was going to kind of move forward, but not move too far forward. Stand there and then hopefully get you at a disadvantage, that you would be just too far away to charge. That's my whole plan, was that you were going to be just an inch or 2 out of charge range. Mm-hmm. So then I could then buff my units and fire. What didn't work though was my Zouaves would move too far forward. I think that's that is the thing with the Zouaves, the Imperial Zouaves. They have a movement of 4, so you're tempted to be like, wow, a line infantry unit that moves 4. So that means I can move them 12 in one turn. So I think there's this this thing with that unit. Don't get too excited about moving them really fast, because it might not be the right thing to do.
Right. Just because they can move that fast doesn't mean you should.
Exactly.
But you also, like, I ended up jinking in turn 2. I jinked my heavy cavalry over to my right.
Oh yeah.
Which was your left flank.
Yeah.
Over to those Zouaves, and I had buffed them with a +2 on the charge, which was the only reason why they got to come around that side hill right by the bridge and charge them. And even though I charged them, I think I killed 2 bases, like maybe 6 wounds worth of infantry.
No, you only killed 1 base.
Oh, I only killed 1 base, yeah.
You did 4 wounds total.
That's what it was. It was a base and a wound.
Yep.
And then you were able to pull out of that the next turn. You kind of like withdrew out of that. But the only reason why I reached you was because I gave them the +2 charge at the beginning of the game. So the first thing I did at the beginning of the game was my commander on horseback started like giving that heavy cavalry some of those buffs that don't go away.
And we talked about that. You were talking about that as you were doing that, and I didn't think too much of it, which I probably should have thought more.
Well, yeah, it was just one of those things that I kind of noticed that that's one of the things I noticed that if I've kind of like learned with this game of playing this, especially this scenario, is that your commander gives out upgrades or buffs, if I can call them that, that stick and stay with your guys until you use them. Like +2 on your next charge, those kinds of things. And then the chaplain does ones that are very temporary, like only 1 turn long. So at the beginning of the game, you can actually hold some of your stuff back. You could theoretically, for the first 2 turns, just sit still and have your commander just lay out things to your troops, like just a support role. I think this makes your commander, like I've got a commander on that's a mounted commander, which makes him a little bit more mobile, but I never had any chance of getting him into combat. He wasn't like a Space Marine, like a chapter master that's going to like drop out of go straight into combat. He's not going to do that because he's never using his movement, those short orders, to jump forward and get into an initial charge. In fact, he was like last in line because all of his short orders were used for giving other units benefits. So I can see in my next Sludge Force not putting somebody on horseback like you have yours, because they're just sitting at the backfield anyways, acting in a more commanding role, frankly, acting a commander acting like a commander, frankly. My commander, he's never going to be leading from the front, we'll put it that way. He's always going to be in the back trying to buff units and help units as the game goes on. And you had arcanists out there. I just had a royal magician, and I noticed that your arcanists were really kind of like useful for a lot of your units. Like, how do you feel about like some of the things that you regularly used with the arcanists? What were?
Yeah, so the arcanists, it seems like what I used the most was the where was that?
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No. The arcanists, I generally used the enchanted arms. That was what it was called.
Enchanted arms. Yes. You use it. I wasn't casting at all. I was like, ooh, what's that? Enchanted. I just don't have any arcanists. So,
it's it's a sorcery. Target number 5. It's what's the range? 5 inches, and it could be on the arcanists themselves, or it could be within 5 inches, an ally within 5 inches. It's basically that unit gets +1 damage until the user's next activation, and so that's a short order. So you can do that, 3 times in a turn if you don't move. So I was doing it, 1, 2, 3 times sometimes on one unit, giving them +2 or 3 damage if I could, just to help out.
Yeah, and I think that extra damage, because like you think of like the defense, like let's just say the defense of a commander is like 6, right, and then you have say like your crossbow. Well, let's do like musket volley. Musket volley has a damage of +2. Then that goes up to a +3, and then you're wounding that defense of 6 on a 3. Right. And so I noticed you were doing that a lot with some of your units right off the bat, is adding that extra damage to them, which really increases if you have a high burst with line infantry. It really increases your chances, like to wound on a 4+ or wound on a 3+. That's a huge jump.
Yeah.
Right. Like on a 6-sided dice. So I think that's one of the things this game has going for it is. The fact that you roll to hit, like your tests are on a 10-sided dice, but then when you're rolling to wound, those are on 6-sided dice. So if you've got a +1 to wound, that's a huge deal, like going from a 3+ to wound to a 2+ to wound, or conversely, whatever. It's like it's just one of those big jumps, right? We know from playing other war games that wounding on a 4+ or wounding on a 3+, there's a huge difference between the two of them.
Yes.
If you're rolling 15 dice, that's really a huge deal.
Yeah.
So the Arcanist, I saw the value in that. That central line infantry with muskets, the one that I was talking about before, you were upgrading them with a lot of those all game long. And then also your field gun too,
yes,
where you were upgrading with that as well.
It's really something with the field gun. I mean, it already has, I believe, a +5. But when you can give it additional +1 damages, you can really hurt anything on a 2+ that you want to.
Right.
With the field gun, with an Arcanist.
Right. Because if they're like behind, cover or something like that. Yeah, exactly.
Or who knows?
Right.
I might be facing a different army with like a Saint or something, and you just boost up that cannon, and you're hitting whatever you're wounded whatever you want. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So one of the things that I thought was really interesting was your the role of your light infantry or your light cavalry.
Light cavalry, they were
really great.
Yeah.
So like turn 2, I think it was, your light cavalry ran into my hussars and pretty much chopped up what was left of the hussars. The hussars got hit by your field gun, I think, first.
Yes,
right?
Yes, they did.
They got hit by the field gun, and so they were taken from 5 strong down to 3.
Yeah.
And then I kind of edged up alongside that red brick wall over there, and then your light infantry came around and charged them, and because I didn't have the charge, you just kind of wiped me out.
Yeah.
Then it was maybe turn 3.
I think it was the next. Yeah.
Because you got to charge, then you got a free movement, and then you won initiative the next time. And with your first move, you took your light infantry and charged into the
light cavalry, and I charged into your crossbowmen.
Your light cavalry charged into my crossbowmen, and my crossbowmen already had 2 stress. Going on, and I think this was one of the first things that really opened up my idea of like how the mechanics of this game works is. The light cavalry charged into the crossbow line infantry and caused enough wounds and caused enough gore that I failed my test and took more stress. And once I had 4 stress, I suddenly lost 8 wounds because it was from a cavalry charge, which doubles the number of guys that die, that run away, that break and run away. And we kind of took a break for supper after that. And I remember just thinking like how clever of a mechanic that was, that the cavalry actually hit a unit that was already stressed and caused a multiplier of damage to it. And it acted like a cavalry would in an actual force. I thought that was a really pivotal moment in the game because my crossbowmen had stepped forward and shot up your line infantry, the one we had been talking about before.
Yeah.
Just tore a big hunk out of them.
Yeah.
And I felt at that point in the game, I was just like, haha. I was like, aha. Because I had my heavy cavalry come around the side of that embankment by the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And they drove back your, the Zouaves.
Zouaves, yep.
And then the Zouaves fell back, and I was like, okay, I got those guys on the heels, and then I shot with my crossbowmen, and they did a lot of damage to your line infantry. I was like, haha, like I'm gonna be on top of this. And then your light cavalry came and just charged my line infantry. Because I was already stressed, like I'd lost like 3/4 of them.
Yeah.
Like I went from like 6 bases down to 2, and it was really a lot of damage. It was sort of mind blowing. I was just like, whoa, this relatively fragile light cavalry unit just wiped out my hussars, and then rotated around and took out a huge. Yeah, they were like an MVP for you.
They were. They really
It
were.
was pretty cool.
Yeah, I was surprised with them. Well, the first thing I was surprised with was how cheap they are. I always thought they were a really cheap unit that should be worth it, and I just wasn't sure exactly how they would be worth it until this game.
Right, they're 5 points apiece.
5 points each.
Right.
I had 4 of them, so that's 20 points. I mean, for 4 dudes on horses
Right.
with no guns, just sabers. I didn't upgrade them at all.
Yeah, my hussars are 5 points apiece. Line infantry is 10 points apiece, and you've got 3 wounds in there, but they're not fast,
No.
and they don't have that doubling of wounds on the charge,
No.
that sort of thing.
They have other things going for them, though.
Yeah.
The formations and things.
Oh, sure, yeah, they got the formations and everything too.
Mm-hmm.
I played around a little bit with that too. Going into line formation to give you extra shooting power. I never really got into that column formation.
That's something we need to try. I haven't tried that yet either.
Well, one of the things I was thinking, you had that, like the veteran ability that gives you the short order hold position.
Yep.
And that if you were in column formation and holding position, you could really look like a pretty formidable wall.
Those are the Zouaves, and again, they move 4 inches. They've got that. Yeah, they're a really neat unit. They're one of the special Imperial units.
Yeah.
They were the only Imperial unit I took, specific Imperial unit to this army.
Yeah,
that I took in this game.
my specific Royalist units were my Royal Magician, the Hussars, and my Marines. The Royal Marines. And the Royal Marines worked fine, except that they really didn't get in it. They didn't do anything.
No.
They shot up your horses, your light infantry. They wiped them up when that was kind of obvious, and then they jumped on the objective. But they didn't really get into the thick of it. They have some abilities. I gave them the muskets that would made them range 14, but they never really had to use that. They just were just kind of like out of it for most of the battle. I ran them up the side of the river. They got onto the bridge and ended up capturing the objective. So they did their job, I guess, but they didn't really shine like I wanted them to. I am a little bit impressed with the crossbows being range 14. I noticed, one of the things I noticed tonight that I learned is that like the crossbows have a longer range, but they are TN 7 to hit.
Right.
And then the muskets are shorter range, and they're TN 6. And that doesn't seem like a big deal until you start adding in all the modifiers. Basically, if you've got +1 cunning, then you're down to a 5 versus a 6, and then all these other kind of modifiers you can add on. So the Royal Marines, for 5 points, I give them rifles, in which case their muskets become range 14. So they're kind of like the range of the crossbows, only at target number 6.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty cool, and I
Yeah.
can see how giving them like +1 to hit, or giving them a focus fire or something like that would really be helpful. And reaching out, and that 2 inches doesn't seem like a big deal, but it is. It is. There's several times tonight where the 2 inches came into came into play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. This game is played on 4x4 or 6x4 tables, basically the size of like a 40K, what Warhammer 40,000 or Necromunda or something. But unlike those games, the vast majority of the weapons are 12 inches. Like you're gonna have an army, and your basic gun is gonna be 12-inch range, with a couple of exceptions. Like you said, you've got the rifles that are 14 or the crossbows that are 14. But there's not a whole lot of stuff that, like, there's no, like, 24-inch range weapons are your standard thing. No, that's not a thing in this game.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the first couple of turns, it seems like movement is a little bit more important, maybe.
And I like that.
Yeah, me too.
I like that. I was talking a little bit about, I just last night I went to somebody's house, and it came up. My wife actually outed me as a 40K player amongst a bunch of D&D and board gamers, and they just don't understand Games Workshop stuff at all. One guy was like, "Oh, I played back in 3rd edition," and I was like, "That's cute," It's like, that's cute. It'd be like, I played all the way up through 8th and played one game of 9th. But they kind of started asking about what was going on with the game, and I said I didn't really know with 10th edition. But and then we talked about it a little bit here, that like when 40K started, you would have these guys all on foot,
Mm-hmm.
and then you would kind of like spend 1 or 2 turns advancing towards each other
Mm-hmm.
and kind of figuring out where you were going to go, and then turns 3 or 4 you would engage, and then 5 and 6 were the mop up. Like that was, and that's how this game kind of ran.
Yeah.
Like turns 1 and 2, we had a little bit. It was like, haha, you had a little bit of skirmishing here.
Totally.
And we both, our line infantry, we buffed them and then decided not to engage with them. We're like, and then I kind of like tagged you with some horses, and like you came into me with your horses, but it wasn't until like turn 3, turn 4 that we were fully engaged.
Yeah.
And I like that. I guess I kind of like the idea that if I had something that was really mobile, say like my command units, which are mounted and can go 18 inches in 1 turn if they really needed to change position, or like you could have infantry or cavalry kind of like do an end around and come around to another flank, that you could say like, yeah, I'm going to move these guys 15 inches over here, and then next turn around, and they're not going to be out of the game. So I actually enjoy that kind of like boots on the ground maneuvering, thinking about what your opponent is going to do and trying to figure it out in the beginning. I really, really, really appreciate that. Possibly more than even more than what I'm saying. Is that I like that it starts a little bit slower, and then musket volleys being like 12, other guns being 14. It makes you kind of like advance a little bit and get into range, and that it's not just automatic, that you don't, like obviously the field gun is going to be able to reach out as far as you want it to go. But we should talk a little bit about the field gun.
Okay.
Because I felt like it was more effective at like sniping characters than it was at firing into troops. I mean, maybe, like, I don't know, and I'm not saying it's like a broken thing or anything that's bad, but it was interesting in terms of like how you buffed it, how you got like the 2 dice to roll to make sure that it was bouncing in the right place. And then it was a really effective way of killing my commander. Talk about the field gun a little bit, like how you played it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the way that this game played out. So in my mind, I was gonna have kind of a strong middle and kind of left flank on my side of infantry, and then the horses, the cavalry was gonna try and like react to something that you would get close. If you got too close, I'd react to the cavalry. Didn't exactly play out that way, but the field gun was on my right flank and moved up to the top of the hill, so it'd have a good look at the battlefield. So the idea with that, then, once it was on top of the hill and I had this like strong center, I was thinking what I needed to do with with the field gun was target things that were going to be threatening me very quickly. Things that were close to me. So if you notice at the beginning of the game, I shot your horses. All I did was target your horses on my right flank, the horses that were on your left flank. Those are the only things I targeted. I didn't shoot at like anything else. And that was on purpose because I thought that those were the fastest units so they could threaten me quicker than anything else you had out there. So I felt like I had to target those and kill those first.
And they were also like the hussars that you fired at, they were also like lined up
right
in kind of a column formation,
right.
And so it seemed like if you got a good bounce, you could hit like 3 of them.
That was helpful, but it was really like one of those things where like I had the strong grouping of infantry in one section, and the other flank was completely only guarded by a cannon. So I had to try and just stop things that were going fast, so I could deal with things that were going slow with everything else. Mm-hmm. That was kind of the thought, and so that's why I shot your cavalry, and pretty much only your cavalry. And then at the end, I only shot your commander because of the scenario. To be honest, I would never have shot him if it wasn't for the scenario, because I didn't think it would be worth it most of the time. Now, maybe it's worth it most of the time, but I only shot him at the end of the game because I wanted to get 5 points.
Oh yeah, totally. And I think it was a wise move.
Yeah.
And it was just interesting to see how it, like when you shot it, you would what made you roll 2 dice? You would focus fire it. You would focus fire it, and then you would use your arcanist to.
Yeah. So the Arcanist not the Arcanist. I used the Chaplain to bless them.
Chaplain, yep, you would bless
to
it.
be able to re-roll.
Yep.
But if you noticed, I had 5 crew members.
Yeah.
I had a veteran crew. Yeah. The veteran crew allows you to roll 2 dice.
That's right.
And then when I bless it, I can re-roll those 2 dice.
Yeah.
So I've got like 4 dice chance there to get the number I want.
Right.
So. It's kind of, it almost makes it foolproof. It's almost better than the machinist or the mechanic that the Imperials get that buffs their war machines.
Yeah.
Although if I had that guy, I could have fired it twice.
Right. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that I'm like kind of learning about this game is how you can kind of get some synergies like that.
Yeah.
Like firing a cannon twice. I don't know if you can use those buffs twice. Sometimes those get removed as soon as you fire it. Mm-hmm. But
that's a good point.
But that depending on which ones they are, but that you can make this cannon basically, re-rolls to hit enough extra damage that nothing can really defend against it. Just don't roll ones, and you're gonna do damage to it, and then you're gonna roll 3 dice. And if you hit something like a commander or an arcanist or a chaplain or something like that, you're gonna kill that guy.
Yeah.
And so it becomes like this really powerful ball out there. I can see now. We played a 250 point game, and I can start seeing like when you start getting into say 350 or 450 point games, when necessarily I'll have to start stacking units up that are thicker, where you can start throwing that cannonball. A lot of times it would bounce, and it would bounce behind a unit, but there was nothing back there.
Right.
But in larger games, being able to fire that cannon and check the range. So you would have to guess first the range. You'd say like, 10 inches or 15 inches. And then roll a d10 to see where the ball landed. Mm-hmm. Well, your second shot, you can guess again. Mm-hmm. So you can adjust that second shot and say like, well, okay, so for the first one, I hit that first unit and it bounced back to the second unit. The next one, you could guess for 5 inches longer. And just say like, I don't care if I don't hit that first unit, I'm going for those back units now, even further back. And so I think there's like all kinds of possibilities with the field gun for causing like really a lot of havoc in people's minds. And then also as it bounces through, it's got that massive shock value to it. And in this game specifically, this being really only like my 3rd game of Sludge, right? I think.
Me too.
Yeah, 3rd game. Just to throw it right out there, is seeing the effects of stress on units. I had on the left flank my light cavalry, the dragoons, with the muskets. And because of units getting destroyed nearby them, because of my light cavalry getting killed by my hussars getting killed by your light cavalry, they ended up getting a stress from, I think, failing a test against gore, and then a unit getting destroyed near them gave them a second stress. And then I ran them forward. I tried to alleviate the stress. I did by giving them the short order, the prayer, to alleviate it, the steady order. Failed on those. And then they ended up taking a third stress test that they failed, and they were already at a -2. And suddenly, I had a third stress, and it was the first time I had a third stress that I had to take casualties from, and all 3 of them ran away.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh, stress is a big deal.
Yeah.
So not only was it the light infantry, my light infantry just disappearing at the cavalry charge, but also having a unit of 3. And just because of 2 failed stress tests and a unit getting destroyed nearby, suddenly they were losing, because they were only 1 wound apiece. You got 3 wounds in that unit. The entire unit just ran away.
Yeah.
And it never hit a thing.
No.
That unit never did a thing. All it did was experience stress and run off the board.
Yeah.
And I think that's really that was very interesting to me, because I was just like, oh, I'll be fine. No, I'm not fine.
No.
And so on that point of stress and taking stress tests, is in this particular game there was a lot of gore in my backfield that I had no way to eliminate. I had no way to bring that down. I had no musicians out there. I only have, I didn't bring the line infantry that had musicians. So the only person that could really get rid of gore, apart from, was really my commander, was really the only one that was going to do it, unless I actually passed a stress test and was able to remove it. But most of the time when I would pass a nerve test, sorry, not a stress test, a nerve test, when I would pass a nerve test, I would be removing nerve, or removing stress from my guys, not, that was more important to me, was to remove the -1 modifiers than to remove the gore. But I found that there'd be a lot of gore in my backfield by the turn 4, and that my units were adjusting where they would go according to the gore, and I found that I couldn't even keep away from it. Like when I wanted to advance, when I wanted to move where I wanted to go, I would be inadvertently, even my Royal Marines, when they came off the bridge and ran towards the objective, they inadvertently ran too close to some gore and gained the stress from it. It's just from the... So that really was a big eye-opener for me, was how taking care of the gore is having a full command, both the standard, which gives you +1 on the nerve tests, and then the musician, which allows you a free action to eliminate the gore, was really important. I didn't have that out there, and I really felt like I needed it. I really felt like I needed it.
Now you do have units with musicians, don't you? But you just didn't have it in that game?
I didn't have that in that game.
Okay.
I have a 5-unit line infantry that has a musician in it. But I, for whatever reason, just when I pointed it up, I couldn't fit them in. I wanted to use the crossbows for this one, because I like the crossbow unit, and I wanted to use the Royal Marines, and really just for the 250 points. I fooled around with a couple different builds. I actually had one of the builds had all 4 line infantry in it, my pole of weapons, the Marines, the muskets, and the crossbows, but there wasn't much room for anything else. It was like a commander and line infantry. And so I wanted to have, really the idea behind my force was I wanted to have as much royalist forces in here as possible. So everything I had that was a special royalist force, the magician, the hussars, and the Marines, I wanted to make sure I had in that force. That was really it.
Well, I thought that my force was going to be, it'd be lopsided to have the crawler, so I didn't take that in my force. For some reason, I just felt it wouldn't work in 250. Although I could have, but it was either that or the cannon. Either that or the field artillery, and I went with the field artillery.
Yeah, I felt the same thing about the battle kite. I was
Yeah.
just like, I don't think it's a 250 point game
Yeah.
unit. I mean, I could, but it was just like, it's a big 30 point thing flying out there.
Right.
And
It's only 30 points?
I think it's not, because it's not all that tough.
Yeah, that's true. I'm just the crawler's 60, I believe.
Oh yeah, I could check it right now. I am. Yeah, I think what it comes down to is 30 points. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I'm excited to see that in action.
Yeah, it's we'll see it tomorrow, probably, but it's only it's 5 wounds.
Mm-hmm.
What's your? Do you know how many wounds your crawler has offhand?
No, I don't
Oh
know.
yeah, that's all right. And then it's speed 7, which is fast. It can drop bombs, but it's got a defense of 5, which isn't all that great. But I think it's one of those things where if it gets within range of a line infantry, the range is just measured to its base, so it's essentially flying on the ground. It's not like you add an extra 12 inches to the height or anything weird like that. And if a unit of line infantry with muskets gets within range of it, they'll just shoot it down out of the sky. It's not, the battle kites aren't going to be it's not going to be like a flyer in 40K that's unstoppable.
Yeah.
Unstoppable, but it's not like you need 6s to hit it or anything like
Yeah.
that. You just roll normally to hit it.
Okay.
So yeah, it doesn't have a jink save. It doesn't have anything like that. So but yeah, it's only 30 points, but I don't think it's really all that spectacular.
Okay.
Yeah. It doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, I am excited to use the crawler. Last time we played with it, I had a good time with it. It's a defensive 7.
Yeah.
It's also tough, so it has a 5+ save essentially.
Yeah.
And it has 6 wounds.
6 wounds. That's
So-
that's a good amount of
That's a good amount.
good amount of clutter. Because even when our line infantry would really unload on each other, it seems like we would get 4 wounds was
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's we'll see. Maybe I'll get my heavy knights to be able to charge that crawler. And,
Yeah.
see if they can really pound it forward. But is it immune to can it run away? Does it get stress? And I'm only assuming it can.
They drop gore when wounded, just like anything else.
Yep.
When they take damage, the gore could be from wounded crew members, or maybe the gore is black smoke and wreckage. Either way, it adds to the chaos of the battlefield. That is a designer note for that. So
Alright.
it acts like a normal unit. It's not immune from
Stress or anything.
stress or gore. So yeah.
Yeah. I suppose it's a little bit like being shaken or stunned or.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so that was the game. I don't know. Was you want to? Anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, just that it was interesting. Kind of I felt like it kind of swung back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
There were times I felt really confident, and then there's times when I didn't feel very confident.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like my infantry, or my cavalry, charging your infantry kept you back on your heels a little bit. I feel like with a game like this scenario, you have to advance, and but you didn't have a lot of choice. I did this thing where my heavy cavalry, what was left of my heavy cavalry, came around the corner, and I charged you, and then I tried to do a double attack with my magician. I tried to have him attack you twice, and it didn't really work out, but it kind of held you there. And that the charging of my cavalry maybe kept you back on your heels a little bit from getting towards the objective, and then allowed my Marines to jump on it, and it was 30 6 to 13 or something like that. Was it
It was 15, I think.
15
Yeah,
at the end?
I think so.
Yeah. But at no point did I feel like safe. Like towards the end of the game, you had units that were just like killing my characters. Like I had nothing left on this whole one side of the board.
Mhm.
The only thing I had were my Marines on the objective. That was all I had going for me. If that hill or that embankment next to the objective had not been there, you would have shot me right off of that.
Yeah, that was key.
Yeah,
That was key.
having that cover there was key. Blocked line of sight was
Mhm.
key. Otherwise, I don't think I would have taken that. You had plenty to fight with. It was just kind of pushed back
Mhm.
from the cavalry, just kind of diving in.
Yeah, it was. I pushed too far forward with the Zouaves too early. I was like, oh, I can move in 12 inches, so I'm going to. It was a mistake, I think. But hindsight's 20/20, as they say, and I didn't realize that you did that extra plus 2 inches to move or to the assault, that order, and I just didn't think that they would be in range of getting charged right away.
Mhm.
So that's live and learn.
Yeah.
One of the things about Sludge that I wanted to kind of hit on immediately, and I bought the models to do so, was to build an army that was very line infantry heavy.
Mhm.
And I still am working on more line infantry. I have a whole nother unit of basic line infantry and a unit of conscripts that need to be finished.
Yeah.
But my army currently has 2 units of line infantry and a unit of Zouaves, which are also line infantry. They don't count as line infantry for purchasing elite units, but they count for line infantry as in they get to do the formations that line infantry does.
Yeah. I meant conscripts. That's an interesting unit because you have
Yes.
actually 4 models on every base.
Mhm.
They have 4 wounds, but they run away easier.
Yes.
And it's just a really interesting unit that's like I think they can be really powerful, but they're also extremely fragile.
And they don't get musicians.
No.
And they don't get regimental panners. They're just
Right.
a bunch of dudes running out there.
Bunch of dudes running out there. And you gotta love it. You gotta
Yeah,
love it.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's like the Penal Legion or
Yep.
something like that.
Yep.
So that's all really fun. Yeah, I also like I think where I can expand with my army is like I mentioned before is like shock troops, foot
Yeah.
knights, skirmishers, Jaegers. Like I don't have any of those things. I went for cavalry,
Mhm.
and because that was my initial vision was
Mhm.
like to have a very cavalry heavy force. But I want to diversify. I want to have like I don't. But I have 3 units of line infantry. Actually 4 now.
Yeah.
But my next force, I'm going to have a lot more of those polearm infantry. I think that's my next vision, is just to have a whole bunch of spiky things, like army that's dangerous to move on the table.
Yeah.
draws blood when you try to move them forward. But that's probably where I'm going with that. Yeah, but it was a pretty cool game. I thought it was really great.
Yeah, I like the contrast of your army was built as a kind of I feel like it was a fast, maneuverable, cavalry army, and mine is a slow, ponderous.
Yeah.
The idea was it was kind of slow and ponderous and tough.
but it was cool too because it actually played out that way.
Yeah.
When you started putting on the hold orders,
Right.
Because you had paid for those upgrades for them to be short orders.
Right.
It denied my cavalry. Like I wasn't going to go charge at them and let them get shot.
Yeah.
It's exactly what I didn't want to have to. So I changed my plans because I saw those guys have the hold orders come
Mhm.
up, and that was cool. That was your line infantry actually set their bayonets in the they kind of wedged them in the dirt and were ready for the charge.
I think as we play this game and we're talking about the things you can do, I really do think it was designed really, really well. It makes line infantry is very useful,
Mhm.
and it's very you can win games with line infantry. They're very valuable, but everything can be used. I don't know where I'm going here, but I really like how this game was designed, and it almost gives me more. I feel like it gives more options than when we used to play 40K a lot. I feel like there's more interesting things you can do with this game than you could do with that game. Maybe I'm wrong. But that's how I feel right now.
I think that there's potential for that.
Yeah.
I think there's there's a great potential for looking at, like I said, these synergies, if I can use that term.
Yeah.
Looking at the synergies as I get to know these, I start seeing potentials, and I can't figure them out entirely yet, but I start seeing potentials for setting up certain synergies that if you have units in the right place and people giving the right orders, you can have a relatively meek unit really shine and really do some amazing stuff. Especially some of those like Jaegers, skirmishers, shock troops, foot knights, heavy knights, those kind of like really heavy hitters, buffed with the right backup, they can really, like that's, like if I have a whole bunch of guys following those guys into battle, they could really come slamming into you with a lot of stuff. That's with a lot of upgrades. I think that's a possibility, and I think that's kind of the thing that's fascinating me now is how do you make these units work more efficiently, and how do those formations like how you have the formation, you have them in a formation like an aligned formation, and then you buff them with several different things. How's that all work out? I think you can really surprise people with clever planning, clever placement. And that's what I want. I want a little bit more control over what I do, and then if I put my models in the right place and I give them the right orders, that they work more efficiently. I want that control, and this game seems like it offers it to me.
Yeah, for sure.
Excellent, great game, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Very, very cool.
Thanks for watching, and that was the first Sludge Talk. We hope to do more games and do more Sludge Talks in the future. Until next time, this has been Jay. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.